What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. So, going to finish up my MLB free agency predictions. And the plan was to do it yesterday, but Neil and I got off to a great conversation, kind of a couple different sports. Talked a bunch of MLB free agency stuff, but didn't really go into my full-on predictions yet. Did the first couple that I have here, but so let's get into it. Definitely gonna do all the big time bats that are hitting the market. May save the pitchers for Monday, see how I feel. Uh, but let's get started. So a couple that I already went over. JT Realmuto going back to the Phillies, 2 years, 28 million. Just not a lot of teams need a catcher, so I think he'll kind of fall back into their lap. Had Pete going back to the Mets, P. Alonso, 6 years, 180 million. I think they'll realize, yeah, we should have locked him up last year. I shouldn't have done the base what ended up being a 1 year deal. A great year last year, 30 home runs, 117 RBIs. The fans would riot if he left. I'd definitely be one of them for sure. They need his bat in the lineup. That lineup is gonna miss him sorely if he's gone. To bring him back. Obviously, Josh Naylor already signed. I'm talking about Ryan O'Hearn going to Arizona. They trade Josh Naylor and Suarez at the deadline last year to Seattle. So they're gonna want a corner bat. O'Hearn's been one of the more dependable ones in recent years, mainly in Baltimore, finished last year in San Diego. Older player, I thought they bring in Arias to the Angels. I mentioned Arias. Arias, look, he not a great defender, but just a great bat to ball hitter. Gets on base. He's not your like typical leadoff guy in 2025, but he gets the job done. And he's always bringing, a veteran. They throw money at some veteran, hoping it'll fix that mess, but never does. But Arias, I mean, he might help the team a little bit. I mean, the guy's a great hitter, but won't fix the mess over there. But he's a very good hitter, and yeah, I'll go to the Angels. Now to the guys I didn't get into yet, so let's get this started. Kazuma Okamoto, he was just posted. He's coming over from Japan. There's a bunch of guys doing that this year. Play third and first over in Japan. Will probably play mostly first in the major leagues. I've heard he projects as more of a first baseman. Can also play the outfield. I had him signing with the Baltimore Orioles. I'm not sure if the addition of Taylor Ward changes that, but Ward is an outfielder. He's not a first baseman. He might be able to play over there, but he's an outfielder. With Baltimore, I mean, they need to focus on pitching. Pitching out, they trade Christian Rodriguez away. However, they could use an upgrade at first base. They brought in Tyler O'Neill last year to kind of do a bunch of DHing and some first base, especially with Santander leaving. And he didn't really produce last year. He was terrible, coming off a 30 plus homer year with Boston the year prior. I mean, he could have bounced back and be better, but first base is still a bit of a weak point for the Baltimore Orioles. Also, you traded Ryan O'Hearn at the deadline last year. So they're going to need an upgrade over there at first, unless you're moving O'Neill over there. So I'll say Okamoto goes to the Baltimore Orioles. They're saying they're willing to spend money. They've been a little bit better in recent years, but still, there's a couple of guys that they haven't spent on that they probably should have. So Okamoto have it going to Baltimore. Next thing up is Jorge Polanco, infielder from the Seattle Mariners. Great finish to last year. Very good player. Been around for a while. Very good hitter. Not a great infielder. He was a shortstop when he first went to Minnesota. They moved him to second base. He's bounced around. He was in Seattle the last couple of years. They had some huge hits in the playoffs, just right down the stretch. I have him going to the Boston Red Sox, 2 years, 25 million. I think Seattle, they usually like to use for trade market, but you have a really good young core. Alpha, you just brought back Josh Naylor. They're gonna at least try and bring back Eugenio Suarez, I would think, and we'll see what else they do. But I just don't think Plunk will be their priority. You have some infielders. You can always play Dominic Canzone at second base. I mean, in the playoffs, by the end of their postseason run, they were actually playing Dominic Canzone pretty much every day at second base, and they were DHing Plunk because he's not a good defender. Boston's got a hole at second base. Was Nick Sogar for the most part was their starting second baseman in the playoffs. You have Roman Gonzalez who can play over there. You have a couple of options. Marcelo Mayer is a young kid, a prospect who came up last year, was playing pretty well, then he got hurt. So you're like, all right, where does he fit in? We'll get more into where I think Alex Bregman's going very shortly. But I think he goes to Boston. If you're Boston, you got the Yankees right there in your division. Toronto just went to the World Series. They're a very good team. They have money to spend. They seem to be willing to spend it this offseason. You got to keep up with these teams. Baltimore might be even getting aggressive this offseason. So second baseman is a bit of a hole for them. If you bring in a guy like Polanco, they're like, all right, what the heck do we do with all these guys? Duran and Mayer. Maybe these guys could be in a package for a big time player. Imagine that gets you, Turk Skubal. You have Crochet and Skubal on the top of your rotation, or somebody else like that. That would be huge. So I have Polanco going to the Boston Red Sox. Gleyber Torres, I did think he'd go back to Detroit. I thought he'd get a bigger deal, but didn't happen. Although he resigns with on the qualifying offer. Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette. So I talked about this with Neil a little bit yesterday. I do think he resigns with the Toronto Blue Jays. I am getting an 8-year deal worth $216 million. Bo is a little bit injury prone, and he's not a very good defensive shortstop. I think he'll move to second base pretty much right away. But he's one of the best hitters in all of baseball. He's had 3 years, 3 of the last 4 years, besides 2024, which was like a wonky injury plagued year for him. That he's had, well, at least 180 hits, twice led the league in hits. Would have this year if he didn't get hurt in September. He hit 312, 18 home runs, 94 RBIs. Would have had 20 and 100 if he didn't get hurt. The guy, after missing like 3 weeks with a knee injury, still couldn't really run very well, and he came back and in the World Series and swung the bat really, really well. And actually looked pretty solid defensively at second base, a position he really hasn't played a whole lot at this level. On a bum knee after not seeing the field for 3 weeks. So he's a great hitter. I don't think Toronto can lose this guy. You just were in the Game 7 of the World Series. You were just in the World Series. You have a really good young core. This is a very good team. He's a homegrown guy. He's close with Vlad. He likes playing there. I don't understand how you can let this guy go. If they, didn't make the playoffs, lost in the first round or something, I could see him being like, you know what, I'm gonna get out of here. Uh, the only teams I could see really competing for him is San Francisco and maybe Atlanta. San Francisco they need bats. They love throwing money around. Atlanta has a big hole at shortstop. It appears they're going to give this group at least one more try. Even with Snicker retiring, they're just promoting Walt Weiss, their bench coach, to manager, from more manager in Colorado. Then their manager, they accept the option of Chris Sale. They re-sign Rosal Iglesias, so it's not like they're retooling or blowing it up or anything. So I can see them trying. The Mets have been like briefly mentioned. I don't see it. They just have so many infielders. He just is not a need. They need to pursue pitching a little bit more than they need to pursue their lineup outside of Pete Alonso. And I've heard the Yankees. I don't see him leaving to go to the Yankees after Toronto just beat them in the playoffs. And again, it's not really a huge need for the Yankees. I mean, well, if he's going to play shortstop, he's certainly better than Anthony Volpe, but it seems they're pretty content with him being their shortstop next year and going forward. And again, they just have other priorities. They need probably figure out what's going on in that outfield, maybe in that bullpen. So and just nobody else really makes a whole lot of sense. So I think he'll shouldn't be very hard. Most experts that MLB experts have said he's probably going back there. I think it's what will happen. He goes back to the Blue Jays. Alex Bregman. So I told you we were going to talk about him. Here we go. I have him going back to the Boston Red Sox. 4 years, 128 million. A couple of Red Sox fans have talked about this. So they bring in Devers last year in free agency. They do the 3-year deal with the opt-outs. He ends up opting out for the season. Devers ends up getting traded. Devers had what? A decade left on his deal. Why would you trade a decade of Devers for a few months of Alex Bregman? It doesn't really make any sense. I get it. They have a ton of infielders, young guys. They're going to have to move a couple pieces. Jaron Duran and Willie Abreu, at least one of those guys should be moved. Maybe even a guy like Marcelo Mayer could be in a package for a big time player. But I think Bregman should come back. He's still one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. He's a little bit older, but last year, 114 games, he was hurt for a bit, but he had 18 home runs, 62 RBIs, 8.1 OPS. So a solid year offensively. So like very good defensive third baseman. He played a smidge of second base as well. He's the best option they have at third base. And I think he likes playing there. He's a good mentor for a lot of those young guys. He didn't produce a whole lot in the Yankee series, but throughout his career, he's been an excellent postseason producer, two-time World Series champion in Houston. I think he goes back to Boston, 4 years, $128 million. And now here's Eugenio Suarez. I'm going to the Atlanta Braves, 3 years, $80 million. Like I said, Atlanta is not giving up. They're trying to squeeze one more run out of this core that's getting a little bit older. The injuries are starting to pile up. But you bring in Suarez, not a great defensive third baseman, but last year he hit 49 home runs. The guy just hits tanks. He's one of the premier power hitters in the game. Was a big part of Seattle's playoff run this past year. And I know you have Olson Robbie there. He's coming back from the injury. When he's healthy, he's maybe the best third baseman in all of baseball. He's young. But they could also DH him. Marcelo Ozuna is a free agent. Doubt he comes back. He's older. He's kind of regressing a bit. So I think Suarez heads to Atlanta, 3 years for $80 million, and he probably slots in as designated hitter. And if you want to kind of load man, Olson Robbie coming back, if we get hurt again, you can always slot Eugenio Suarez into third base. Now, one of the most polarizing names on this list is going to be my next guy we're going to talk about, Munetaka Murakami. So Murakami is really an interesting case. He's one of the best power hitters to come out of Japan. A few years ago, he had 56 home runs. Even this past year, injuries limiting him to like 60 games, still with 24 home runs over 50 RBIs. The power is there, but a couple of concerns I have for him. He just struck out a lot over the last few years. His strike rate has been like 20%. That's pretty high. That's definitely above the league average in Major League Baseball. So he does strike out a lot. He played mostly third base in Japan, but he can play first. He projects as a first baseman at the next level, just kind of an okay defender. Uh, and the most glaring stat was he hit 0.95 against pitchers 93 miles per hour or faster. So in major leagues, most guys, if a guy throws 95, he's almost a soft tosser at that point. Everyone throws 97, 98, 100 at a major league level. I'm not going to get into where I think that is smart. It's a whole other conversation for the pitchers. But at the end of the day, that's the reality. He seems like a guy who he's not going to be like Otani and right away be an elite producer. I promise I'm not comparing Otani to Murakami. That's not a fair comparison for anybody. But I'm just saying, like Otani right away was an elite player with the Angels. With a couple of years in, was already an MVP. I think he'll be a little bit more like Seiya Suzuki, whose first couple of years kind of struggled to make that transition. And it took him a few years, really till this season, to really break out. I feel like it might take him. He's a little bit more raw than people think. I mean, first of all, he is only 26 years old. Um, if he can't hit the fastball, he's gonna have a hard time hitting at this level. That's what he's there for. But I mean, the raw power is there. Something that can be taught. And I think he ends up in Boston. I really think he ends up in Boston. I don't think he ends up with the Dodgers. I just don't know where he'd play. Because obviously Otani is your DH. Um, yeah, Freddie Freeman at first. He's a better first baseman defensively. If you play Murakami at third, now you're moving Max Muncy to the outfield. And he can play the outfield, but he's a better third baseman defensively. And that might solve the Dodgers' potential outfield problems. So do need another outfield bat. And if you move Muncy out there, that might kind of help. That might help them out. But you probably get a little bit worse defensively, and that would I don't think there's much of a point of them doing that. I've heard the Yankees. I mean, it makes some sense. Ryan McMahon doesn't have much of a bat, but he's a Gold Glover at third base. Ben Rice, do you want him playing first base every single day? He's not a very good defender over there. Do you want, him to be mixed into the catching mix? Do you want him to be mixed into the DH spot? Stanton's always hurt. So I think they'll be in on him, but I don't see it. I've heard the Mets be mentioned. That depends if Pete Alonso comes back. If Pete Alonso comes back, I don't think he signs there. I do think he's going back. Though if he does leave, that's probably where he might end up going. That would be where the Mets would probably have to turn. You just think of the other first baseman on the market. He is just the best name by far. It sticks out at you like a sore thumb over there. But I think he has to the ball. They need an upgrade at first base. Nate Lau, you just DFA'd. He wasn't bad for them down the stretch, but he didn't have a good year last year overall at the plate. Um, and Murakami is just the better player. Obviously, has a lot more power. And the only other first baseman we have is Romy Gonzalez. Christian Campbell played there when he had to because Rafael Devers said I'm not playing there. Then he got traded, so they kind of just had a glaring hole over there. Obviously, Cases got hurt last year. Now he's posting some weird stuff on social media. I have a feeling he's not coming back next year. I think he'll end up getting traded. So I think Murakami goes to the Boston Red Sox. They really got to, start spending some money if they really want to compete in the American League. They got, like I said, they got to keep up with Toronto and the Yankees. All three teams that they got to keep up with each other. And I think this is a good start by bringing in Munetaka Murakami. I'll give him 7 years, 145 million. I don't think he's going to get this massive, massive deal because he's still a little bit raw. I can see there being like some sort of opt-out clause in there or incentive clause in case this guy does take a few years to really lock in, but he'll get a big deal. It's maybe not like a $200 million mega deal, but he'll still get a big contract. Next up is Cody Bellinger. I do think he re-signs with the Yankees. 6 years, $185 million is my contract prediction. I know Grisham was the qualifying wasn't so surprised. That shouldn't hamper them from going out and getting a guy like Cody Bellinger. It really shouldn't. I would love the Mets to grab him. They do have a bit of a need in center field. He'd be a perfect fit, I think, for the Mets. But I think he re-signs with the Yankees. The Dodgers are also a possibility, going back to where it all started. They could use an upgrade in center field. But I just think the Yankees really need him. When it comes to the Mets, you have Juan Soto, you have Brandon Nimmo. Tyrone Taylor is there. He's not much of a hitter, but he's a great center field defensively. If you roll that out next year, not a problem. Like the Dodgers, they can roll with the same one and probably still be okay. They can still go out and get somebody else. Obviously, if they're willing to spend the money, they'll be fine. The Yankees, if you roll out Trent Grisham and Jason Dominguez playing every day, not having that flexibility, even with Aaron Judge, the league's best player, arguably, outside of Shohei Ohtani, that's a little bit concerning for a team that clearly is, possibly in a make or break year next year. So I just think, uh, look, I've talked enough about Brian Cashman, how he's just not that guy as a GM. I don't think he has the stones to do some of the things that he needs to do. But in this case, he's like, especially since the Mets are going to be one of the top suitors, he already lost Juan Soto. He goes out and trades the world for Juan Soto loses him to the Mets, regardless of what the end result was last year and what it will end up being next year. He can't go out and trade for Cody Bellinger and lose him to possibly to the Mets, or even the Dodgers, who beat you in the World Series 2 seasons ago, um, after the year. So I think he will pony up for Cody Bellinger. And why he gets such a big contract, a few years ago, after he had that big bounce back year with the Cubs, he wanted that big contract. No one wanted to give it to him because whatever it was his age and the injury history, and because before the 24 season, or the 23 season, he had some bad years with the Dodgers, so he settled for the 3 year deal. Has a bit of a regression, so he opts in. Cubs move him to the Yankees, and he has a huge year, his best season in years. And now he's like, all right, I'm 30. It's my last time to get that big contract. I'm not doing another 1 year deal or an opt out deal again. I need to get that big deal, and I think he will get it this time. Uh, Trent Grisham's already at the board. I mentioned the Yankees qualifying offer. I actually thought he could be a target for the Mets. Kind of glad as a Mets fan he's not. He's just an obvious regression candidate. He's not a bad player, but he's older, not the same outfielder anymore defensively. I don't think he's gonna hit 34 home runs again. I'm not saying he'll be like he was in 2024 where he hit like 150 or whatever, but he's some guy that he'll hit like 2 4 or 17 home runs, which isn't horrific, but like he's not gonna be like one of the league's better leadoff guys next year, I don't think. All right, and the big outfield that's on the market is Kyle Tucker. Before I say this is someone I want to happen, but I think it's gonna happen. I think he's gonna be a Dodger. I think a 9 year deal worth 310 million. He's the best free agent on the market. I know down the stretch last year he was hurt, tried to play through an injury, struggled mightily after being a beast in the first half. So the injuries are a concern, but he's still in his prime. He's what, 27 or 28 years old. One healthy, he's one of the best players in the game. He's good for 30 homers, 100 plus RBIs every single year. He's a good outfielder. The guy mashes. He's an elite player. The Dodgers need an outfield bat. They can use an upgrade in center field offensively. He was linked to the Dodgers before the World Series even ended. He's not going back to the Cubs. A lot of people think he's going to be with the Dodgers, the Yankees, or the Jays. With Toronto, I don't think he's really a need. You look at the outfield, Dalton Varsho hit 20 home runs in like 80 games last year, and he's a platinum glove out there. I'm not sure if I need to bring in Tucker, who might be a more consistent bat, and a little less injury prone, but he's a worse defender than Varsho. And you look what they have in the corners. I get it. What do you do with Santander? Springer has to DH. But you have Addison Barger who could play out there. He had a really good year last year. So I just don't think it's a need. Part of the reason Toronto was so good last year because they were just a really good, complete team. Not only could they hit, they had solid starting pitching. The bullpen, when it was on, was good. There's also an elite defensive team. And Tucker, I think he's a bad defender, but he would worsen them a tiny bit in the output, I think. And at the end of the day, Santander got $100+ million last year. There is a spot for him. You're probably going to have to trade him unless he's going to be coming off the bench or platooning. It was easier said than done because of all the money he had left on the deal, and he was horrible last year. Was hurt a lot. So I don't think that happens. The Yankees, I really think they're going to really focus on bringing back Cody Bellinger. Tucker is an upgrade over Cody Bellinger for sure. He's a better player. He's even younger. He's also going to cost a lot more. We know how Brian Cashman can be, and that organization can be nowadays. So I think he's going to end up a Dodger. I've heard, the Mets move makes sense. I love the Mets got Kyle Tucker. Remember, the Mets need to prioritize pitching at the end of the day. We can talk about all these bats all we want. They need to prioritize pitching. Well, first of all, they got to bring back Pete Alonso. We'll talk about Edwin Diaz later, or maybe Monday. But they got to prioritize pitching, both the starting rotation and the bullpen, before they even really look at, bringing in guys like Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker. That's what the situation is. The Dodgers have more starting pitching than they know what to do with. But they need an outfield bat. They can really hone in on Tucker more than these other teams can. They can go into Los Angeles Dodgers. Just gonna do two more names, and I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Monday I'll do the pitchers Monday or Tuesday. Got two designated hitters on here that I'm gonna go over. First name is Marcell Ozuna. I think he goes to the Texas Rangers a year for 14 million. Ozuna, look, they were down year last year, but last year only hitting 232. They're hitting 300 the year prior, but still had 21 home runs, 68 RBIs. He's got a bit of a limit ceiling. He seems like he's declining. He's old. Was he 37 or 38 years old? He's, of course, had off the field issues. So certain locker rooms are going to be like, I don't know if I want to do that. But Texas needs some bats. They could use a boost in that lineup. So I think Ozuna will provide that, even if he's not a guy, but he's not going to do what he did in 2024, hit 300 with 30 home runs. If he can, give them 20 homers and 60 RBIs, that would give their lineup a bit of a boost if they need. He's old, so he's not going to get a long-term deal. Give him a year, give him 14 million. I think that gets it done. And then Kyle Schwarber, I think he ends up back in Philadelphia. Here's my reasoning. He's strictly a DH. I look at some other teams. People have said Boston. He played there in 2021. But I just think they have so many bats over there that I just don't think they can figure out the DH spot with in-house. Plus, I think they go after Murakami harder than they go after Schwarber. I don't think he would go to the Mets. I would love Schwarber. I mean, first of all, he kills the Mets. They'll be he can't hurt you if he's on your team kind of thing. DH is a spot that's going to be could use an upgrade, but again, they have so many young bats they could fill that thing in house. They need to bring back Pete Alonso first before they consider Kyle Schwarber and just other places. I don't think a whole lot of other teams are going to be looking for a strictly a DH who's what 34 years old. As good as Schwarber is, maybe the best pure power hitter in the game besides Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. Hit 56 home runs last year, was National League MVP finalist. I just think he's going to kind of fall into the Phillies' lap. Phillies got a very interesting offseason. This course seems like they kind of run their course. But Dombrowski never gives up. The manager, Rob Thompson's coming back. I would have to think he's going to try and squeeze one more run out of this group. And he's going to try and re-sign a bunch of these guys like Kyle Schwarber. We'll get to Ranger Suarez on Monday, where I think he goes. But I think Schwarber will kind of fall back into their lap. I don't think he wants to leave. I know he had that quote right after they lost, kind of saying, "Oh, how much he loves that group," and he was a little bit, seemed a little bit emotional. He kind of had that look of like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's over." But I think, tensions will kind of uh, come to their senses with him. He'll do his due diligence and he'll realize my heart's in Philadelphia. I've enjoyed my time here. He loves the fans there. The playoff atmosphere at Citizens Bank Park is great. The Phillies don't win a lot there, I'm just saying, but the atmosphere is very impressive. I think he ends up back with the Phillies on a 4-year deal worth $92 million. But that is my free agency predictions for the hitters. Going to do the pitchers. Either Monday or Tuesday. Mondays I always do my football recap. So either Monday or Tuesday I will finish up my free agency predictions. And then the non-tender deadline is today. If there's some big names that get let go, I may incorporate that as well. That might be a whole nother segment. I'm not sure. But keep your eyes peeled for that. But until next time, so long. Have a great day.